So today is Friday, September 12th at the Cupertino Civic Center and Library project. Right now we're looking at the community hall building. We have iron workers currently inside of the footings. We're currently putting rebar on all our footings for the community hall building. Iron workers started last Tuesday putting rebar in these footings. Basically grade beams with roughly approximately 3 feet deep, 2 feet wide, spread footings throughout the foundation system for the community hall building. Somewhat of a standard foundation system for a building of this size, not a whole lot of weight, not a lot of soil conditions. We plan on having the rebar in for this building the end of next week. And then after that, we'll start pouring all the footings and then follow the following week with under slab rough-in, utilities, and then we'll start pouring our slab on grade. Right now what we see is conduits sticking up, which are the electrical conduits for the electrical room. Those conduits come out of the building and veer towards the front of City Hall, which will be a new transformer for a new power service for the community hall. We also see a couple of conduits sticking up on the back side of the community hall. We'll call that the east side of the community hall, which is for all the AV, audiovisual scope of work, which will house the new council chambers for community hall, and all those conduits will run back into City Hall in the existing audiovisual room downstairs located in the basement, and that eventually will give us continue the services from City Hall out to the community hall building. So right now, as of today, Swinnerton Builders is pretty much right on schedule. In fact, they're a little ahead of schedule with the community hall facility with getting rebar in and moving right along. Salinas Rebar, Harris Salinas Rebar is putting the rebar in. They've had crews anywhere from 10 to 16 people out here over the last 3 weeks working on both the library and the community hall building. And as we walk towards the library building, heading east right now, we can see we have our first major milestone of the project. We're starting to pump concrete into the footings of the library. The pour started 7 a.m. this morning. Approximately 1,000 cubic yards will be placed over the course of the day today. Roughly 100 trucks, 9 cubic yard trucks of concrete. We have a 4,000 PSI mix designed for the footings in the library, and we'll walk slowly towards them. Swinnerton's subcontractor, G & Kohler, who is the concrete sub, has a crew of 2 crews of about 6 to 7 people each pouring on both sides of the library right now. They started on the south side, and another crew on the north side pouring all the footings. As we're looking at now, we can see the fire main service that is protruding up through the footing, which will be the footing for the community hall building. This is a new 6-inch fire service that will handle the sprinkler system in the new community hall building, which is located in the storage room inside of the community hall building. That work is now completed and will be tied in on the building side with the sprinkler system, and then we'll exit the building and get tied into the main fire system for the building. We also notice here the grounding rod, that's a copper grounding rod which goes around the perimeter of the building, which grounds the building and the rebar to ground. So that is in the process of going in right now, and we have the same condition in the library. So right now we're looking due west, which we're looking at A-line, and we can see that the anchor bolts are currently set, ready to be poured, and these will house the arcade, the front arcade of the library. And on A line here, we see the columns will extend up to the second level of the building. All the anchor bolts are set. They've been certified. And Giancola now is just starting to, as we mentioned earlier, starting to pour all the footings. They'll work their way from the south to the north. And that's what they're currently doing right now. We also get a look here at all the rebar inside of the footings. And again, the foundation systems for this building is grade beams with tie beams and piers around the columns, which we see in the middle. Number 9 bars on the top with an assortment of number 8 bars, number 3 bars throughout the foundation system, with the foundation system varying in size from 6 feet wide to 3 feet deep to 3 feet wide throughout the perimeter and the interior of the building. Standard installation, nothing really major here. We get a shot right over here at the grounding rod. Again, that will ground the building, the foundation of the building to ground, and that runs along the perimeter of the whole building. We're now walking along the east side of the building, looking at right here, which would be the future book drop area once the structure starts to go up. And we can see the couplers for the number 9 bars on the top of the rebar mat, which is basically a splice joint that ties the rebars together. Moving east along the building, again, we just see foundation systems being all rebar installed, ready to be placed. And we see the concrete crew, the second concrete crew now on the north side of the building, waiting for the concrete trucks to roll up. Concrete trucks, 9 cubic yards of 4,000 psi concrete. RMC Lone Star out of San Jose is the concrete provider. Roughly 15 minutes to empty one of the 9 cubic yard trucks, averaging anywhere from 4 to 6 trucks an hour, based on the distance on how far they're pumping to the footings. This job had most jobs like this nature are typically pumped and not shooted out of the back of the truck, just due to the distance. It's very difficult for trucks to pull up, and it's not efficient. So everything on the footings here will be pumped, and they may just shoot out the perimeter footings because the trucks can back in. Here we take a look at one of the storm drains that's exiting the east side of the building. This is a line that will run into the courtyard of the building, picking up all the area drains, and then will tie into the stormwater system on the perimeter of the building. Pretty standard installation, stubbed out underneath the footing, and then will be picked up at a later date on both sides of the building. As we move to the southeast side of the building, we see 8 5-inch conduits sticking up, and that's the location of the main electrical room for the library. Those conduits exit the building, and will go to a transformer up in the Redwood Grove, and then be connected to the PG&E main service for the building. We now continue to walk in the westward direction. Again, we can see this is the outer boundary of the library, and we see our rebar foundation system, similar to what we looked at as we walked eastward. We get a good shot at the anchor bolts here, a 6-bolt pattern, pretty standard for this building. As you can see, the amount of work that's necessary to ensure that the bolts are held in place within the pores as these bolt locations cannot even move 1/8 of an inch. As when steel gets installed at a later date, they have to be exactly in the right location, or the systems won't work. So it's extremely important that when these anchor bolts are installed, they're right on as far as elevation and as far as location, both east, west, and north and south. And we get a shot here on how the anchor bolts are held by 2x6 members, along with control lines that give them center of column line. We again looking towards the west here. We see the first pump pouring the foundations on the east side of the building, and that will continue through most of the day today. The plan is to roughly pour 900 cubic yards today. The pour started at 7 a.m. this morning and will probably last through 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon, which makes for a long Friday.
This one.
Here we see the concrete finishers and Joe, the foreman from Giancola, doing a fabulous job finishing off the top of the footings. So ultimately, when they're complete by the end of the day, all of these holes, as we may call them, will be filled with concrete, and the finishers will finish the top. Finish not as concerned with foundations as we'll get sand, rock, and a concrete slab on top of here. But we do want a smooth surface so we don't have any rock pockets or uneven surfaces. So again, here we see the concrete crews just finishing off the top of the footings here, with the bars, the vertical bars extending through and the stirrups on them to tie into the slab up above that will be poured at a later date. Here again we see the main fire riser for the library. Again, this is a 6-inch line that enters the building on the east side, which will bring the main point of fire water for the library. Will then be tied into the main sprinkler system throughout the building and be distributed out through the 2 floors. And then it will tie into the main fire service that will go out to the street. We're also taking a look at the finished footings that have been completed about approximately an hour ago. As of today, Swinnerton Build is pretty much right on track with where they said they would be with their schedule, which is a good thing. Basically 2 months into the project as of today, a little over 2 months into the project today. So far we're in pretty good shape with the target scheduled date of completion in the October of next year time frame. Weather conditions today are ideal. A little hot, no wind whatsoever on the site, making it a little hot, but good conditions for pouring concrete. A little difficult for the individuals pouring, but as far as the curing and the placement of the concrete, good weather conditions. To the center of the building, we see that the concrete masons are now getting ready to, they're wetting down the bottom of the footing so we have a nice moist footing, getting ready for the next distribution of concrete that's going to be pumped from the northerly pump. Biggest challenge for the crews right now is to get the concrete trucks out here as fast as possible. With a pour of this size, it's real important that the batch plants are getting the trucks out as fast as possible. You should have a lot of bodies waiting around here for concrete. So looks like we have a little break in the action, but it's real important that the trucks keep up with the pour, because it makes for a long day. We also have our special inspector out here from Construction Testing Services, Gerald, who is monitoring all the placement of all concrete on site. His job is to make sure that the rebar spacing is correct prior to all pours, that we have all our clearances around the bars, and make sure that when we're dropping concrete out of the pump, we're not exceeding the distances that are required for the specifications, which means many times the pump actually has to get down into the mat of the foundation so we don't have a drop greater than 3 feet. Additionally, we want to make sure that the concrete is the consistency that the specs require. So what CTS will do is, out of each truck that comes, they take cylinders, test cylinders, which are then tested to make sure that we get our 4,000 PSI concrete. So again, as we start moving northerly, the north side of the building, again, it seems the trucks have showed up and we're starting to pump again. As I mentioned earlier about special inspections, it's critical that during any concrete pour, we have another set of eyes ensuring that all the concrete meets the criteria. It's critical that our foundation systems meet the specifications, as they're what hold up the building. So Gerald from CTS is out here all day, every day, from the minute we stop pouring to the minute we end. Again, ensuring that he reviews the mix designs, making sure that what is inside the truck actually meets the specifications, and he does that with every truck that comes on site. He looks at their tag to ensure that it is the mix design that was specified. So that happens throughout the day, and then he's continually taking what we call cylinders, test cylinders, that will then go back to his shop, and on at a 7-day period, at a 14-day period, at a 21 period, they'll break the cylinders to ensure that the concrete strength is per specifications. Concrete specifications for this mix design is 4,000 PSI. So all the footings throughout this building will have to come up to a strength of 4,000 pounds per square inch. And what we do is we take multiple cylinders just in case we ever have a problem, so that we can wait. Concrete will cure over a period of time, and it will increase. The strength of the concrete will increase as time passes. So they'll do a break at 7 days, they'll do a break at 14 days. Typically the curve for concrete is within the first 7 days we'll almost get up to 3,000, 3,500 PSI, and then it will slow down, and we should get to 4,000 PSI well within the 21-day period, the first 21 days. If we don't, then we start to get a little concerned. Again, we're watching the pump place concrete in the footings. it will then be vibrated. It's critical that all foundation systems are vibrated correctly, so we don't have any rock pockets, we don't have any settlement or voids in between the spaces. So every time we're pouring concrete, we have a gentleman on a vibrator vibrating the mix, ensuring that we have a good consistency of the concrete. What we're placing today is a 5 3/4 sack mix, concrete mix with a slump of 3 and a rock size of 1 inch. 1 inch was decreased from, I believe, 1.5 inches due to the pumping of the concrete. As of 11:20 this morning, we're probably about 45% through our pour, 50% through our pour. And we can see all of A line has been placed, and then working on the north and south sides of the building, areas that are now completed. We recently had a change with the addition of an aquarium, which will go in the center of the building. And we at the last minute were able to dig our footings and put the appropriate rebar required in order to pour that section of the building today. Again, looking at the pumping operation, as you can see, we have Berkeley Concrete Pumping doing the pumping. And the way that works is that the concrete trucks pull up to the back of the pumping rig and just unload from the chutes of the concrete drum right into a drum on the pumping rig, and then it gets pumped over to the locations that are needed. Pumping is a pretty common procedure performed in the construction business, especially on high-rise buildings, and a lot of times on footings. If you can't access them directly with the truck, it's an efficient way to pour concrete. Costly, but efficient. Concrete pumping trucks usually work. They get a couple of bucks a cubic yard that they pour, in addition to the price of concrete. And then they also have a move-in and a move-out fee. So for a day like today, when they're pouring, 1,000 cubic yards, it'd be a couple of dollars per cubic yard, and then, the time of the workers required on the working the pump. So it can get costly. So it's real important that they're real efficient when they're using a pump. Again, now we're looking at the main entry to the library. Looking due east, due south to the Redwood Grove. So what we can expect in the days to come is, starting next week, we'll have underground plumbing, electrical starting above our footings on our slab on grade. We'll start putting rock, sand, and visqueen, and then we'll pour our slabs. And that should occur over the next 4 to 6 weeks. And then after that, steel will arrive roughly the 10th of November. So the job is progressing as scheduled. The attitude of the tradespeople on the job seem to be real positive to date. Swinnerton and their subs seem to be working really well together. So things are good right now, but that could change at a moment's notice. So we're trying to stay on top of this to ensure that we're getting the quality levels that we need, and that the attitude of the whole team and the project stays positive. Our architects, SMWM, so far has done a great job of turning around RFIs and submittals. Our structural engineer, Farrell Elsa, was out here yesterday. They did a review of all the footings. We also had Flack and Kurtz, our electrical designers and plumbing designers, out here yesterday to review all the plumbing installations and all the electrical installations. And everything looked really good. We had a couple of late-minute fixes that were done, but that work was completed and signed off. And that completes our segment today.